I've got my 1951 Zenith on the bench again, and I'm going to see if I can get the vertical working better, the vertical size and the linearity better than it was. Now this resistor, let me see if I can point to it. I still have the after effects of a cold that I've had for over 2 weeks now. This is R4 in the circuit. I have a picture of that in this video, but this is supposed to be 3.3 megs, but I'm checking it. You can see it's 6.5 megs, so it's more than doubled. So I'm going to change that resistor. That's R4 on the vertical output, the 6SN7 vertical output tube. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with the vertical size pot, which is right here. This is a 7.3 mega ohm pot, and I'm pretty sure this pot is noisy. I've used deoxit in it, but I'm going to connect the meter up to the pot and just see how it reacts with the meter on it. I now have my meter connected to the vertical size pot, and it's right here, and right now it's reading 2.29 megs. Now I'm not going to rotate the shaft, but I'm going to just wiggle it a little bit. I don't get much action there. Yeah, there we go. So we're going up. If I see, it goes up a little bit just from wiggling the shaft. Now let me increase the. We'll go up to about the middle of it. I'm going to move the shaft one way, 3.58, the other way. Well, it's not changing very much. I did actually check this a little bit earlier. Well, there we go. So here 3.8, and then I wiggle it one way, and it drops down a little bit. .3 megs. It seems to be unstable. It's what we would call noisy. I'm wiggling it this way, 4.4, wiggle it down, 4.2. Not big changes. Before, when I was wiggling it, I had a lot more. It would change several K. Actually, several hundred K it would change. .27. So I'm not sure about this pot. I have a replacement for it. Here's as high as it'll go, 5.9. That's in the circuit. And again, wiggling the shaft back and forth makes a change. At least 100K difference. Drop it down a little bit. Here we are. Now under voltage and current, when the set is on, it'll probably react different than with this meter. You know, the low current and voltage is going through it with this meter is going to be quite different. Oh, look at that. Just from wiggling the shaft, it went up a couple hundred K. Then we go down. You know, that makes a big difference. See, I'm not turning the shaft, I'm just wiggling it. Look at how it changes. So, anyways, this pot is real suspect. And Rick of All American 5 Radio recommended I use some WD-40 on it. Now, I've already put deoxit in that pot, But I'm going to squirt a little bit of WD-40 in it and work it around and let it sit and just see what it does. And I'm not sure, you know, I do have a replacement pot. I almost think I should just change it, but I'll see what I can do with it. If I can get it to stabilize a little bit, I'll give that a try. Anyways, I do know that this R4 resistor should be changed. It's doubled in value. There's a lot of resistors I didn't check that maybe I should have. I did change, these are these two 220K resistors are in the vertical circuit, and I did put those, I changed those right off the bat when I recapped it. So those are changed, but I didn't change that 3.3 meg resistor, so I'm going to change that out. And then power the setup again to see what it does when I deal with this pot. Okay, I did spray a little bit of a dash of WD-40 in this pot, as per Rick's recommendation. I noticed I put this paper towel in there to make sure that it just didn't dribble all over the place. I do the same thing with the deoxit. But it actually looks like it stabilized it a little bit more. I've got it set to where it's 3.3 megs, and if I wiggle a little bit, it doesn't change very much. Before it changed, I could, if I wiggled it, before I actually had it on camera, I could get it to change 2 or 300 K. 3.77, and again I'm wiggling it, and no change, or very little change. 4.3, 4.5, and I'm not touching it now. I'm just letting it stabilize. 4.7, wiggle. 4.5, so it does change a little bit, but not as much. 4.5. So I don't know. I might try this with the original pot before I change it out, just to see if I did anything. If not, if it still does the same thing, and I'm thinking that vertical size changing like it is, I'm thinking that's got to be the pot, but I don't know. 3.93, 3.94, if I wiggle it this way, 5, push it this way, goes down a little bit, 3.91. Before I could get it to change like 100K, 200K, so it changes a little bit, a few hundred ohms, or a few thousand ohms, but not 100,000 ohms. I don't know. And like I say, when this thing is under power, where it's got voltage and current going through it, that could be a big different story. Here we'll let it 5.1, wiggle this way, 5.12, 5.11, 5.10, wiggle it back the other way, 5.1112. This without changing it. So Rick recommended I let this WD-40 soak in there for a while. I'm going to do that for a while before I put the set it together enough to test it. And of course I will change this 3.3 meg resistor, which has gone to 6.5. I didn't do anything with these ceramic disc capacitors, and I checked them and they seem to test okay. I don't know if they're leaky. That might be the next thing I might want to look at. I just wanted to add this in. Here I have it set to 2.3 megs, but you notice it's really moving around, changing several thousand ohms. And I'm going to wiggle it, 2.321. Here I wiggle it the other way, 2.367. That 6 is thousand. That's 6,000 ohms, because this is 2.3 megs. So if I wiggle it this way, it's dropping. Look at 29, and I wiggle it up this way, and you know, percentage-wise, that can be a lot, and that would affect the circuit. So I'm going to debate whether I'm going to take this pot out and put another one in. I've got my small tube back in the set, and I changed a couple of resistors that went way out of whack on this thing. They were more than 50% out, really. At least one was. Anyways, I took Rick of All American 5 Radio, his advice, and used WD-40 in the vertical height pot. And you know what? I really think that fixed it, because the vertical is very stable right now. And between changing those resistors and everything, I'm pretty close to the point of wanting to put this thing back together and get it back in the console where it belongs. And so I think that's going to be my next step. Put the big CRT back on, calibrate it as close as I can get it, and get this thing back together. Well, I put the 19AP4 back in because with the small CRT I was fooled into thinking that I solved all the problems with the vertical height pot, but as you will see, that's not the case. I'm going to show how this thing warms up. I'm anxious to get this thing done and back in the console. Now you can see that it's a little unstable as it warms up there. Stable. Notice how blurry the picture looks. As it warms up, that clears up a little bit. But see how it flickered? That's from the vertical height pot. I got the picture a lot more centered. Here's the center dot. It's a lot more centered than it was. But I really still think that flyback transformer has shorter turns, and I know that other people are disagreeing with me on that. But because of how blurry the picture comes up, by the high voltage seems low. And all of my tests, also the picture's a little bit pin-cushioned. I have no idea how to correct that. I've played with all the adjustments that I could play with, and I couldn't seem to get it any better than that. So the WD-40 did seem to help that pot. It doesn't flicker as much as it used to, but if I just wiggle the shaft a little bit, see how unstable it is? That's a 7.5 meg pot. And of course any little bit of noise in there is going to affect that picture. As it's warming up, you'll see that it's getting a little bit sharper. I don't think I'm going to be able to correct all that of the picture being as off as it is. I'm never going to get this thing as good as I would like to. But I'm going to do the best I can, considering this whole thing was dead when I first got it. I've come a long way. I have the new vertical height pot in. I've got this picture centered as well as I can. It's a pin cushioned on either side. I don't know if or how I can correct that, but I'm almost at this stage willing to call this thing as done as I can get it at this point. I hope if I ever get to working on another set, I really hope it's easier than this one is. The linearity isn't great, but it's close. And I've got the picture fairly centered in the screen. And I don't know if I play with it anymore. I don't know if I'm going to get it any better. I might try to get the horizontal linearity a little bit better. I don't know. We'll see if I can do that. But the next step is, and that pot is obviously very stable. A 7.5 meg pot on that circuit, boy, that's hard to really get a stable adjustment on that circuit. I think on Zenith part, that was kind of a bad design to have a pot of that high resistance as that adjustment. But it works. And I think I'll play with a little bit more, and then I'm going to put it back in the cabinet and then call this one, I won't say finished, but as done as I'm going to make it for now, because I want to move on to something else.